There comes a time in every man's life where he's forced to make a choice. Get a job, pay the bills, retire and die, or live for something greater, something infinite. And in that moment, this poor man will become a legend. My entire life has come to this moment. And shove a taco in his pocket. That's right, folks, we have the Gamesir Pocket Taco. And that man, that was me. Was it a real taco or a pocket taco? I'll let you be the judge of that. But either way, Gamesir is bringing us their latest wafer-shaped mobile controller. The Pocket Taco clamps to your phone and connects via Bluetooth. It has nostalgic retro-feeling controls with modern device compatibility. And all of this comes in at a bite-sized $30 to $35 The portability and convenience of this tiny controller make it an easy everyday carry, something you can keep in your pocket and quickly whip it out for short gaming sessions. But this taco may be a bit undercooked, with controls that are a bit too retro at times and a clamp-shaped point of failure. In this video, we're going to take a look at the Gamesir Pocket Taco, explore some of its features and what I've learned from using it, and decide if this is the best vertical phone controller money can buy. Is the Pocket Taco a Baja Blast, or did it bite off more than it can chew? Let's find out. So here we have the box for the Gamesir Pocket 1, or as we know it, the Pocket Taco. This early review unit was sent over by Gamesir, but as usual, it's not sponsored, not paid for, and they're not seeing this before you do. So we can see on the front of the box here, we have Pocket 1 as the name of this controller, but we call it the Pocket Taco. That name was decided from a poll in China, I believe, that Gamesir ran. And then we have the Gamesir chicken mascot there because their name is actually Guangzhou Chicken Run Network Technology Co. A little fun fact there. But let's see what's going on inside the box. We have a scratched up manual that I've been using quite a lot. A little lanyard. USB A to C cable. And the Pocket Taco itself. So here's the protective case that the Pocket Taco comes in. The plastic travel case is great for keeping it in backpacks or purses where impacts are more common, similar to keeping your regular handhelds or controllers in a travel case. But the best part of this case is the little notch up here, where you can easily charge it while it's stored and then quick draw it for easy on-the-go gaming. So here we have the Pocket Taco without the shell. The first thing that you'll notice is how small and lightweight this thing is. It is extremely light and pretty pocketable too. It's clocking in at 62.6 grams, a little over half the weight of a Miyoo Mini, lighter than 3 Game Boy Color cartridges, and 10 grams lighter than my keys. Now the size of the Pocket Taco is very small. It has a generally ergonomic shape with nice curved edges and well-placed controls. The D-pad and face buttons are high enough on the controller, and the shoulder buttons have a nice curved edge too. So there's plenty for your fingers to wrap around. It has a pretty slim profile with a little belly at the bottom that pops out, giving it kind of a lowercase b or D shape, depending on which side you look at it from. The Gamesir official website says that it's 78 millimeters long, 70.9 millimeters tall, and 20.7 millimeters thick. But there's one thing they can't put on a spec sheet, and that's comparing the size of the Pocket Taco to some other devices that you might be more familiar with. Here's how a Pocket Taco compares to a Miyoo Mini. The Taco is about 2/3 the height of the Miyoo Mini, and both of them are very pocketable. They're both pretty slim overall, but the Taco gets thicker when you shove your phone in it. Here's how it stacks up to a Miyoo Mini Flip. About the same height when it's closed, a little wider than the Mini Flip, but the Mini Flip is much thicker when it's closed, and a little more thick when it's open too. Here's how it compares to an ABXY M4 controller that just showed up in the mail. The PT, short for Pocket Taco, is shorter than the M4, but also a little wider. They're very similar in thickness, But looking at the placement of the controls, the Pocket Taco is much higher, so it's more comfortable than the M4. However, it doesn't have analog sticks. Here's how the Taco compares to an Anbernic RG Nano. The Taco is exactly twice the size of the RG Nano, and slightly more thick overall. Here's how it stacks up to an iPhone 13 Pro. It's a little less than half the height of the iPhone, much more thick as well. And here's how it looks in
Taco Vision.
AirPod Pros 2 for scale. It's a little more than twice the size of the AirPods. It's a little bigger than a set of keys. And as you might be aware, I don't own a single debit or credit card. I just have a Dave & Buster's power card for scale, so here's how it stacks up on the Pocket Taco. And it fits perfectly in
Taco Vision Plus.
And I know I'm gonna hear it in the comments, especially with the budget phone controller. Just get a Steam Deck, bro. Now let's take a closer look at the controls. We have 4 membrane-style face buttons in the Nintendo layout, with A on the right and X on the top. They have a super retro aesthetic to them. They're glossy, smooth, and a little bit rounded. The glossy finish has no texture at all, but I wouldn't consider these to be slippery buttons. There's a lot of travel and they bottom out fully, but the sound can be quite loud and toy-like. This is more prominent during intense games, when you're pressing buttons quickly. The D-pad has similar features to the face buttons. It has a very retro feel with satisfying membrane presses. The sound is less clacky and more muted, but the plastic feels cheaper and more toy-like. The rigid D-pad can also be a bit abrasive if your thumbs are more sensitive to that. These face buttons and D-pad can be quite loud when you press them, similar to other retro membrane controls. I was using the Pocket Taco while waiting for a bus in a quiet indoors waiting area, and the buttons and D-pad were loud enough to where other people could hear them, and I felt pretty self-conscious. Unfortunately, the D-pad and ABXY buttons have frequent missed inputs, especially when you press them quickly and not deep enough. I found that I adjusted to this by pressing harder, but the inputs still felt a bit slow due to the longer button travel. If you prefer these retro style controls with mushy and imprecise inputs, then you'll be a fan of these. But if you need snappy dome style buttons for the types of games that you'll be playing, then these membrane ones will not be ideal. On top of the controller, we have 4 inline shoulder buttons. The shoulder buttons are soft, tactile, and mostly quiet. They have an ergonomic shape with long curved outer bumpers and small L2, R2 bumpers on the inside. They're a bit more slim than you may be used to, but that lends itself to a more pocketable profile as well. Between the shoulder buttons, we have a USB-C port for charging the 600 mAh battery and using it as a wired controller. I'm not sure how long the battery lasts, but in my day-to-day use, charging it every couple days, it's been great. I don't think I've ever went below 50% battery. When it comes to start and select, these are 2 of the most retro feeling buttons I've felt on a controller in a very long time. They feel almost identical to your classic Nintendo start select buttons. I have a Game Boy Color for reference, so you can be the judge of that. Up top, we have menu and home buttons that are convenient and well placed. The hotkey combinations can be a bit confusing, so we'll come back to that a little later. On the right side, we have 4 LED indicator lights for battery power, connectivity, and status. Nothing on the left side. And on the bottom, we have maybe one of the best features, a hole for USB-C and lightning cables or whatever you decide to put in there. Now, because the Pocket Taco connects via Bluetooth and not USB-C, we have more compatibility with different devices, like older iPhones that need the lightning cable. So you can just shove whatever type of cable you need through that little hole and charge your device up while you're using the Pocket Taco. Now, the cell phone that I use is an iPhone 13 Pro with a somewhat slim MagSafe case on it, and the Pocket Taco fits it mostly well. But with this phone case, the charging port is a little high to fit some lightning cables. If you have a phone case that's a little bit bulky, then you might run into a similar issue. You can see that this one just barely fits. Now with this taco-shaped design, the phone is kept in there entirely by friction and how tight you squeeze it. There's a grippy rubber texture on the inside of the controller that keeps your phone from slipping around in normal use. That texture does a pretty solid job of keeping your phone inside of the taco, but if you're not squeezing the controller together, then your phone is much more likely to slip out. Here's a very scientific 2-finger shake test. The controller slipped out of my hand before the phone could slip out. In most cases, you'll be looking at around 1 inch for your opening gap. But let's measure just how far we can stretch this thing. I think I broke it. Monto from the future here. It's been a few days since I have overstretched the Pocket Taco, and I've noticed that she ain't gripping the way that she used to. It hasn't affected gameplay too much because you're gripping it from both sides. You know, you're hitting it from the front and from the back. But now it seems like the spring-loaded clamp mechanism is a lot more loose than it was a couple days ago. So it sometimes turns on by accident and it doesn't feel like it's gripping the phone as much. So use this as a cautionary tale to not overstretch your taco. If that thing starts to pop, you gotta stop. Back to you, Monto. Now this controller has a couple convenient features up its sleeve. One of them is its auto turn on mechanism, where when you open the spring, then it automatically boots up and connects to your phone. So within 2 to 3 seconds, you are up and running and ready to play your game. And when you're done playing, all you need to do is take the controller off, and within about 5 seconds, it will automatically disconnect and power down. This is great for not only saving battery, but also switching between controller and touchscreen. It's an extremely convenient feature and honestly one of my favorite things about the Pocket Taco. Connecting via Bluetooth instead of USB-C has its own set of quirks, like latency and the need to charge the device because you're not getting power through the phone. However, some of the benefits include broader device compatibility and the ability to use it as a wireless controller in a pinch. So you can put your phone up on a kickstand, use it wirelessly, or connect it to different devices, like a tablet, Switch, or a Steam Deck. There's some inherent input delay due to a Bluetooth connection, but I haven't found the Pocket Taco to be any better or worse than my other Bluetooth controllers. Here's a very scientifically rigorous input delay test in RetroArch and Delta. You can see that RetroArch is extremely responsive, while Delta struggles with some input delay and missed inputs. Both of them are in game mode as well, so the only difference is the emulator. Plugging it in with a USB-C cable takes any Bluetooth delay out of the equation and replaces it with a cable. However, the Pocket Taco is very lightweight, so adding a cable can throw off the balance a little bit, almost like a USB-C cable to a wireless mouse. But cutting out Bluetooth delay with this wired connection could be just the thing you need to get the dub in Mario Kart DS and do pretty well in Metroid Prime Pinball. Now, setting up the Pocket Taco is quick, but not entirely dummy-proof. If you're a serial manual skipper like me, then you might fall for the same trap. When you first open the Pocket Taco and pair it with your phone, it'll show up in your Bluetooth connections as Gamesir Pocket 1. And to enter Bluetooth pairing mode, you need to press Menu and Home for 2 seconds. By default, it arrives in Android mode, which is excellent for Android devices, but it doesn't work with iOS. Instead, we need to forget the device and then press Home and X button at the top. This will put it into switch mode, which is my preference for iOS. Once the lights start blinking, press and hold M and Home for 2 seconds. This will put it into pairing mode. When it's in switch mode, you'll see Pro Controller come up. This is my favorite mode to use for iOS devices. You can also set it to DS4 or DualShock 4 mode, which is compatible with iOS, Android, and PC. I'd recommend switch mode unless you're switching between a lot of devices. Once your controller is connected to your phone, we can launch an app like RetroArch or Delta to start playing our games. If you're connected to an iPhone, pressing the home button once will take you to the Games app. An interesting decision that I'll probably never need. but pressing the home button twice will bring up the menu inside of our emulators. Hopefully we can change the function of that home button in the Gamesir app when they add Pocket Taco support. Now there is a ton of hotkey combinations using the menu and home button. You can see the specific functions on screen here, and I'll leave a quick reference for all of the key combos in a pinned comment below, so you can just come back to this video if you need a refresher on what the combinations do. The Gamesir app should also be a good resource when they add Pocket Taco support. The most important hotkey to remember is the ABXY layout swap for Xbox style or Nintendo style. To switch layouts, hold the M and B button for 2 seconds. This will swap A and B and X and Y. To switch back, just hold M and B again for 2 seconds. And if you've completely borked everything, you can reset all of your custom functions to default by holding Home and Start button for 3 seconds. Now the iPhone 13 Pro is my main squeeze, so this next section will primarily be focused on setting up emulators on iOS. If you're looking to set up emulators on Android, I'd recommend checking out this video by Retro Game Corps. Before we do anything with the Pocket Taco, I'd recommend setting up game mode to automatically turn on when you launch an emulator like Delta. This will reduce notifications and enable more performance as well. It also doubles the Bluetooth sampling rate for controllers and reduces audio latency for AirPods. You can whitelist certain applications to allow notifications only from those apps and ignore everything else. You can also enable time-sensitive notifications for things that require immediate attention. To have it automatically turn on when you launch an emulator, go to Add Schedule, App, and scroll down to Delta. I've added both my versions of Delta, the free one and the Patreon one. You can also set it to automatically turn on when a controller is connected. When it comes to choosing an emulator on iOS, you have a few options. The main ones are Delta, Manic Emu, and RetroArch. Each one has specific advantages and disadvantages over the others. So let's talk a little bit about them and you can decide which is best for your gaming preferences. Delta is the most well-rounded emulator overall, with excellent compatibility, great features, and a very user-friendly experience. It can only emulate Nintendo systems before 3DS, so everything from the original NES all the way up to Nintendo DS. The free version has a ton of features, but if you want retro achievements and other experimental features, you can upgrade to the Patreon version for $3 US. Now, a unique feature of using Delta is you can set a dedicated skin based on if a controller is connected or not, and these skins resize the game windows to fit the border. So when you have a controller disconnected, it has a skin, but then when you connect it, it automatically switches to your controller skin. So I found that Delta is better for Nintendo DS emulation with the Pocket Taco. And I've modified a Delta skin by All Good No Bad to better fit the Pocket Taco. And I've named this modified skin Del Taco, since you use it with Delta on the taco. The tweaks I've made for Del Taco include making the top screen larger, adding a screen swapped version since Delta currently doesn't have DS screen swapping, making the on-screen buttons less noticeable, and adding a light mode option. Now, I only have a sample pool of one phone, so if you get a Pocket Taco, then try it out and let me know if it works for you. Now, Delta has a pretty seamless experience overall, but there's a noticeable audio lag that affects every system inside of the app. During gameplay, audio will slowly drift out of sync from the video, then catch back up every minute or so. You'll hear the sound skip forward when this happens, and it's an inherent issue with how Delta processes audio in iOS. The latency isn't crippling in most games, but it will be noticeable if you're susceptible to audio latency. Here's an example of the audio latency. Another emulator option we have on iOS is Manic Emu. Manic is a significantly more robust emulator, with support for consoles like 3DS, PlayStation 1, Sega Dreamcast, PSP, and more. It also has more free features than Delta, like shaders, retro achievements, some online play, and more. Retro Achievements is a free website that brings in-game achievements to retro games, so it really breathes new life into these classic titles. And achieving these anywhere that you have cell service is a pretty mind-blowing experience. If you try out Manic Emu, I'd also recommend enabling shaders on your games. The Geom CRT shader is one of my favorites. You can put it on almost any system for an instantly retro CRT feel, with curved edges and nostalgic lo-fi fuzz. It also has support for all of the RetroArch shaders too, like CRT Royale and LCD 3X. Now Manic doesn't have free cloud sync or dedicated controller skins like Delta, so when it comes to swapping between no controller and the Pocket Taco, I'd recommend using Delta, especially for Nintendo DS. And whatever you do, do not enable auto save states in Manic. If it's enabled, touchscreen and controller input will cut out once every 1 to 2 minutes. And when this happens, you'll need to lift your finger up and press back down on a button to make it respond again. I suspect that when it creates an automatic save state, it stops registering any inputs from before the state was created. So if you're playing Mario Kart DS and pressing A for the entire level, when the auto save state hits, your car will feel like it just ran out of gas, because it'll stop accelerating, and you'll need to lift your fingers up and press back down on the gas to start accelerating again. Luckily, disabling the auto save state feature will fix this problem entirely, and you can enjoy all of your games without losing to dry bones, because you were supposed to be the champ. It should have been you wearing that crown, not him. And finally, we have good old reliable RetroArch. The interface is clunky at best and confusing at worst, but it has the best emulation and performance you can get when it comes to retro gaming. It supports endless consoles with endless settings to configure to your liking, if you can navigate its treacherous interface. Out of these three, I've been enjoying Manic Emu the most, since it has all of those free features and support for systems outside of Nintendo. Now let's talk about my personal experience living with the Pocket Taco and using it for the past 2 weeks. I've been using this controller every day, and not even because of this review. I just find myself reaching for it because it's quick and convenient. I can use my AirPods, listen to stuff in the background, and it has cloud save and retro achievements anywhere. The automatic power on to connect and auto shut off is an excellent modern feature to a retro feeling accessory. It's these small quality of life aspects that make the Pocket Taco something I'm more inclined to bring with me on the go. I've kept this in my pocket every day for the last 2 weeks. Now, like many other things in my life, I was raw dogging it with no shell, and it usually turned on by accident once or twice per day. If you plan on stashing it in a sling bag or backpack, then I'd recommend keeping it in this hard shell case that's included with the Pocket Taco. Now with the Pocket Taco, you're going to be covering half the screen, and this means anything that shows up on the bottom half of the screen is going to be covered by the controller. So quitting out of emulators and changing any settings can be a bit clunky. In both Delta and Manic Emu, you have to remove your phone to access the bottom half. This includes any full screen games too. We'll need to resize them to fit in that top visible area. I found that my method for accessing the quick menus has been to remove my phone and keep it kind of propped open so it doesn't automatically shut off. And then just slot it right back in to keep it from constantly connecting and disconnecting with all those notifications up top too. All right, we've talked about a lot of things in this review so far, so let's break it down to a pros and cons list. For pros, at the top of the list is the portability. The Pocket Taco is small and lightweight, so it's extremely portable. Because all the emulation is happening on your phone, we don't need to worry about a separate device with its own battery life, processor, and separate saves. There's also convenient features like automatic power on, power off, simple button swapping, and plenty other hotkeys as well. The controller also has broad compatibility, with its springy taco shape to fit all kinds of phones and cases, the cable hole at the bottom for USB-C and Lightning cables, and the different modes, like Android, Switch, and DualShock 4. It's also a comfortable-ish controller. When you stuff your phone into the Taco, it becomes a pretty substantial device that has generally solid ergonomics overall. And with these features combined, I've found it to be an EDC-worthy device that's super portable, easy to connect in a pinch, and rugged enough to want to bring this thing with me outside of the house. In terms of cons, the biggest one would be that it covers part of your screen, which can be pretty significant depending on your phone size. We have to remove the controller to access anything behind it, so it can be pretty clunky. And with its clamp mechanism, it's prone to spring fatigue, which means if you stretch that thing out, it won't clamp as tightly, if you know what I'm saying. Dap me up, bro. And with the limited controls comes limited games. There's no analog sticks on this controller, so anything that relies on both analog stick and the D-pad is gonna be a bit of a challenge. Speaking of controls, there are some inconsistent inputs with these controls specifically. Missed inputs with the face buttons and accidental diagonals are somewhat common with this controller. This is probably a combination of membrane style inputs with Bluetooth latency. And finally, the hotkeys can be pretty confusing to memorize. It almost feels like I'm back in high school studying for a pop quiz. At the very least, we have the option to use these hotkey combos, but I would have liked to see maybe multicolored indicator lights to have a better idea of what I'm doing to the controller. Memorizing them is a bit outside of my pay grade, so that's why I pinned the comment below as a quick reference for all the different functions. The Pocket Taco has been my EDC ever since I got it. It's completely replaced my GKD Pixel 2 and Manic RG Nano. The convenience of having touchscreen for Nintendo DS, retro achievements, and cloud saves anywhere makes playing on a phone a pretty tantalizing choice. The biggest drawback has always been a lack of physical controls, and the fact that, well, it's your phone. So you're still gonna have notifications and other phone things to do. But now we have a solution for at least one of those things. And while it's not a perfect solution, the Pocket Taco has just enough portability, functionality, and charm to earn a spot inside of my pants. And maybe yours too. So that's the Pocket Taco, the pocket-sized, taco-shaped mobile controller with a tasty blend of retro and modern. Would you order a Pocket Taco? And what games would you play as the main dish? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to pick up a Pocket Taco, there's a link to buy one in the description. While you're down there, make sure to like the video if you liked the video, and Baja Blast that subscribe button for more reviews, tutorials, and other random shit. I'm Montotech, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Later! If you like this video, maybe check out my review of the GKD Pixel 2. It's a pocket-sized EDC device that has a good amount of performance too. It's very rugged, really nice controls, and just a very charming device. You can check out that video here.